Guys, what is going on? Welcome to this review for last night's episode for Monday Night Raw. We're going to take a look at everything that took place on the March 6, 2017 edition of Raw that emanated live from one of my favorite cities, home of the Chicago Blackhawks, Chicago, Illinois, live from the Allstate Arena. I have to say, Raw last night compared to Fastlane was a good show. Raw needed to be a good show, in my opinion, after that piss-poor effort, if you could even call that effort, of Fastlane the night before. I mean, to me, it completely halted any momentum that the Raw brand was trying to build towards WrestleMania, but I thought this episode of Raw got things back on track, and I thought it was a good, solid edition, a very good, solid edition of Raw. There was a lot that I liked. And without further ado, guys, let's get into it. We opened up Raw last night with Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho coming out explaining why he did what he did the night before at Fastlane, costing Kevin Owens the Universal Championship to Bill Goldberg. Jericho said Owens had it coming. During the Festival of Friendship, Owens took a knife to the heart of Jericho and stuck it in, man. And Jericho said he needed answers. And he wanted to know why Owens did what he did. He called Owens out, and Owens had some really good mic work here. He said he pretty much used Jericho. You were simply a tool. And that's why Owens didn't view him stabbing Chris Jericho, as his best friend, because Owens didn't view Chris Jericho as his best friend. He was just a tool. And Owens reference, and I like how I brought this up, that he stabbed Sami Zayn in the back, and it's just what Kevin Owens does. And he pretty much was using Chris Jericho, used him the night that he won the Universal Championship. Triple H told him that everyone is going to be gunning for him, and Owens said he knew he needed somebody to watch his back, and he needed that person, most importantly, to feel gullible. And he said, Jericho, you were pretty much the perfect tool, and you eventually outlived your usefulness when you accepted the Universal Championship match against Bill Goldberg. And if it wasn't for Jericho, Owens said he would have beaten Bill Goldberg for a fact. And pretty much, Jericho said, Owens, you have no idea what you've done. This is the biggest mistake of your life. You won't make that mistake again. And Owens likewise says, no, the biggest mistake you ever made, Chris, was costing me the Universal Championship. And this eventually led to the announcement that right time, right place. Jericho said he's around the friends of Jericho here in the audience, crowds cheering him on. And he says at WrestleMania, he wants to fight Kevin Owens. And Kevin Owens is like, okay, we'll do that under one condition. You put your United States Championship on the line. And Jericho says, why are we going to wait till then? Owens, get your ass in here right now. Let's do this right here, right now. Owens runs to the ring. Jericho and Owens begin the brawl. Samoa Joe appears out of nowhere, begins to attack Jericho. Eventually, Sami Zayn comes down to the ring with a steel chair. Zayn and Jericho clear the ring of Owens and Joe, and I thought this was a really great hot opening to Monday Night Raw. We got the long-awaited announcement of Kevin Owens versus Chris Jericho. They're going to be going one-on-one at WrestleMania. It's going to be... I cannot wait for this match. I've enjoyed, the way that this feud kicked off, the Festival of Friendship, one of my favorite segments of the year. And I liked the announcement of the match. I thought this was really good back and forth promo. I liked Sami Zayn coming down to make the save on Samoa Joe and KO. Keep an eye out. I mean, there have been rumors of a new faction being formed, possibly being led by Triple H, of Samoa Joe, Kevin Owens, and maybe Finn Balor. So I think that would be really, really awesome to see that take place, transpire. But I like this opening to Raw. I thought it really set the pace for what was to be a good show throughout the night. We then had Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn. Really, this was all just about showing Kevin Owens and his ruthlessness, which I like that they played up. And Owens, right move here. He went over with the win, hitting the pop-up powerbomb for the win over Sami Zayn. Zayn really didn't get in too much offense on his friend. You got to build Kevin Owens up as an unstoppable force to be reckoned with after, losing to Goldberg, albeit with Jericho's interference. I like the way that they played that up in the promo. It did tie everything together with the issue that's been going on between Owens and Jericho. We then move into this Cruiserweight Championship match. Really outstanding stuff here between Neville and Rich Swann for some sick spots here, with Swann going headfirst into the LED board. That looked really sick. Eventually, there was a nice exploding off the top rope Hurricane Rana from Rich Swann. He eventually hit a Neville with a modified Michinoku driver for a 2 count. Some nice near falls here. Neville attempted to hit the German suplex, but Swann was able to nicely counter by getting to his feet. Swann was able to grab Neville and hit him with an overhead German suplex. Eventually, Swann hit this sick-looking super kick on Neville for a 2 count. Like I said, this was one of the better cruiserweight matches that we've seen. I liked the cruiserweight match last night, or should I say 2 nights ago, between Neville and Jack Gallagher. And tonight against Rich Swann and Neville, I feel like the cruiserweights are finally getting some momentum behind them. And what do you know? What a concept. Allowing these guys to go out there and just, be themselves in the ring and hold no punches. And I felt that's exactly this match. Rich Swann came out of it looking really good, and Neville retained his Cruiserweight Championship by getting the submission victory with the modified Rings of Saturn. So after this, I like this even more. Austin Aries gets in the ring, and this is exactly how I wanted to see this play out, and it was great. Crowds chanting for Aries' name. I was hoping this is where it was going to be, happen, the tease of an Austin Aries-Neville match. And Neville pretty much says that he's laid waste to pretender after pretender. And Neville says there's no one on 205 Live that can hold a candle to him. And Aries says he thinks that the people can't hear Neville because they were chanting, "What?" And eventually the crowd begins to scream Austin Aries when Neville says if he's sure he can't think of anyone who can compete with him. And Aries says, well, the fans here seem to disagree. And Neville pretty much shuts that down in an instant. He says, no, you're not seriously considering yourself, Austin Aries. There is no way you're on his level. Neville says, just go back to the announcer booth before he re-breaks Aries' orbital socket. I like that little dig right there. And Aries is like, I'm just trying to do my job, man. I'm just doing the interview. And then Aries said he had one more question for Neville. And he said, well, it isn't really a question. It's more of a statement. Aries hits Neville with the microphone, hits the ropes, hits a roaring elbow that takes Neville down. Neville's pissed, and this was great. And if we're going to get Austin Aries versus Neville one-on-one, I cannot think of a better introduction mainly for Austin Aries on the main roster and for a big-time Cruiserweight match for the Cruiserweight Championship at WrestleMania. You put Austin Aries and Neville, allow them to go out there and tell a fantastic story in the ring. These two could have potential to steal the show at WrestleMania. It could be that damn good. It's the right feud that I wanted to see them go for the Cruiserweight Championship. And, I love this. I love the match. I love the segment. This was really, really great stuff. Speaking of what I liked, I liked this segment with the new Universal Champion, Goldberg. He had to deal with the crowd. You knew they were going to be chanting CM Punk. And eventually they were smart enough, Goldberg didn't really talk for too long before Paul Heyman came out. And I love seeing Paul. Who does not love seeing Paul Heyman? He comes down. He pretty much says he does not come alone. He calls out the Beast, the future potential reigning, defending, undisputed Universal Champion, Brock Lesnar. And Lesnar gets right up in Goldberg's face. He says he wants to shake Goldberg's hand because Goldberg is every bit of the beast as Lesnar is. Heyman says he doesn't make predictions. He makes spoilers. And the spoiler is at WrestleMania, there will be a new WWE Universal Champion, and that will be Brock Lesnar. And just as Goldberg leaves, he says, they will say, there he is, Brock's bitch. And Goldberg turns around, runs right into an F5, takes his first bump since coming back. I believe his first bump since 2004. So there you have it. Goldberg laid out with the F5. I liked it. It was a good segment. It set the stage for the Universal title match. I know not all of you were looking forward to that match, but, I like the story that they're telling that, Goldberg has Brock's number and what's going to happen when they step into the ring at WrestleMania. Now, we all can assume that Brock will beat Goldberg for the title and become the new Universal Champion and hopefully have a longer match than a minute 20. They should at least go 6 or 7 minutes. That's not asking too much. Have a good, especially if it's going to be the main event, which we'll have to see. It might be. But if this is going to be the main event, it needs to at least go 7 to 10 minutes. That would be the perfect length for Brock Lesnar, Bill Goldberg. We'll see what they do, but I did like this segment. Also, I liked what they did here with the Raw Tag Team title match between Gallows and Anderson versus Enzo and Cass. Some nice back and forth action between both teams. Didn't really get going too much because Cesaro and Sheamus would walk down to the ring trying to insert their names into the tag title picture. Eventually, as Big Cass was in the ring, Enzo sent Gallows to the outside. Enzo hit a tope suicida onto Gallows, and as Enzo was celebrating, he bumped into Cesaro, who had coffee on him, and he spilled coffee all over him. Eventually, it led to a big, chaotic brawl between all three teams, and the ref ruled disqualification. Therefore, the winners are Gallows and Anderson. They retain their tag team championships. And we have Sheamus and Cesaro. They cleared the ring. Enzo jumped on Cesaro's back. Sheamus kicked Enzo off Cesaro's back and eventually go backstage. All Cesaro and Sheamus and Enzo and Cass are arguing, fighting amongst each other. Mick Foley says, all right. We need to determine who the number one contenders will be for Gallows and Anderson at WrestleMania. Therefore, next week, it is going to be Enzo and Cass versus Sheamus and Cesaro. Okay, makes sense. And the winner will face Anderson and Gallows for the tag titles at WrestleMania. And then, of course, Stephanie shows up, and she's like, come here, Mick. You need to come with me. It's time to emasculate you. So, yeah. Makes sense. I think we're going to be going for a triple threat match, which I'd be okay with. It gets Cesaro and Sheamus, especially Cesaro, at least on the WrestleMania card in a prominent position. Not the position I'd like to see him in, but hey. So the Tag Team Championships, triple threat between all three teams. I think that's the way to go, and that's probably where Enzo and Cass get their big win for the Raw Tag Team Championships. Makes sense for me. Save it on the big stage of WrestleMania. Had no problems with the way that they set up. Would potentially could lead to a triple threat. We'll have to see next week in that number one contenders match. But yeah, didn't have a problem with what happened here. We had Akira Tozawa versus Daivari. Not too much to say here except for Tozawa hits the snap German suplex. It's over, and he, I believe, continues to remain undefeated. After the match, Tozawa grabbed the mic and he told Brian Kendrick to come out here, fight him right now. Kendrick came out and said he will answer Tozawa tomorrow on 205 Live. Eventually, we had the New Day come out. This was the low point of the show. They introduced Chicago to their brand new Ice Cream Cycle. They eventually took on the Shining Stars. New Day win. Kofi Kingston hit the Midnight Hour for the win. Not really too much to say here except for New Day are going to be directionless. They are the host of WrestleMania, so that's good. At least they're doing something. But get ready for them doing absolutely nothing for the next 3 weeks on this show. So yeah, moving on here, we had the in-ring segment between Bayley and Mick Foley. Bayley was talking about the fact that she doesn't feel like a champion right now. She asked Sasha Banks not to get involved, and of course Sasha Banks got involved last night at Fastlane. And Bayley says last year she promised herself she would be on the WrestleMania card, and the question is now, who is going to face Bayley at WrestleMania? Sasha Banks walked down to the ring, and she wanted to make the case for her challenging Bayley one-on-one for the title at WrestleMania, and that would be really awesome to see. But eventually Charlotte and Dana Brooke interrupted. They pretty much say that Charlotte claimed, Banks, you're pretty much using Bayley to get what she wants. And Foley brought up the fact that, well, Charlotte, you lost your contractually obligated rematch clause. Stephanie McMahon came out to loud, boisterous CM Punk chants, as you'd expect in Chicago. She pretty much says, Stephanie said, the people of Chicago are predictable. They are all losers, just like CM Punk. They all cheer for the wrong people. And Stephanie made the case for Charlotte being right. She says, Banks, you're a manipulative person. You're just manipulating Bayley so you can get your hands on the women's title. She said Bayley would not be the women's champion. And Stephanie says the match at Mania will be Bayley against Charlotte for the women's title. But then Mick Foley says you can't leave Sasha Banks out in the cold. And Foley proposes that Banks face Charlotte next week, with the winner going on to face Bayley at Mania. Stephanie says, I'll do you one better. Sasha Banks will face Bayley tonight, and if Banks wins, the match at Mania will be a triple threat. And that's what we get. We get the first ever meeting on the main roster of Sasha Banks versus Bayley. I wouldn't have done this match here. I would have saved it for a pay-per-view. I mean, Sasha Banks versus Bayley, it's a big-time match. I mean, you could do the match again down the line, no problem, but their first meeting in a long, long time here with Sasha getting the tap-out victory over Bayley after Charlotte tried to interfere, but Sasha was able to kick her away. I thought it was a good match. Obviously, it was nowhere near close to the match of the year that they had 2 years ago at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. But yeah, I would have saved this match for another time and another place down the line. But afterwards, Charlotte hit the big boots on Bayley and Banks to lay them out. So right now, as it is, it's just going to be a triple threat match. No Nia Jax for the rumored Fatal 4-Way match. I still think we will see Nia Jax inserted into the picture to make it a Fatal 4-Way. But as of now, it's just going to be a triple threat. I mean, if it's either a triple threat or a Fatal 4-Way, I don't mind that. For the Raw Women's Championship scene. That's the direction that it's been rumored to go in. And I thought maybe we'd see a Sasha Banks heel turn here. Obviously, we didn't get that, so I think they're going to wait and pull the trigger until WrestleMania. I think at Mania, that's where Sasha will finally turn on Bayley, and we'll go from there. So, yeah. After this, we had the Seth Rollins rehab segment. I always love when they do these, showing Seth rehabilitating his injury, saying that he's going to come back to WrestleMania and take out Triple H, pretty much. So, good rehabilitation video package here. Eventually, we had an interview with Triple H via satellite. And did you guys notice, was this a dig at CM Punk in Chicago? Because Triple H said, tip your hat off to the WWE medical staff for the top-notch care Seth Rollins is getting shown in the video package. I thought that was a dig at Punk. Triple H said in his day he didn't have to call himself by the many names he was known as. Rollins, on the other hand, has no choice but to call himself the Man because no one else will. Why? Because it couldn't be farther from the truth. If Rollins is stupid enough to call Triple H out at WrestleMania, it will be the last thing Rollins ever does. I still think it's safe to say that we'll see Seth Rollins versus Triple H at WrestleMania. Really cannot wait for that match. I really look forward to it. So, hopefully, fingers crossed, Rollins can make it back in time for WrestleMania. I think he will. Otherwise, they wouldn't be hyping it up as much as they are here. We then had a short, I have to say, disappointing match between Samoa Joe versus Chris Jericho. I think, obviously, they were scheduled to go longer, but just due to time constraints, they had to cut this match down. I only think it went 5 minutes or so. I'd love to see these two have them do a rematch next week and go even longer. I'd love to see that just happen. Eventually, Joe locked in the coquina clutch on the floor. Jericho passed out. Joe rolled back into the ring. Ref counted to 10. Jericho is counted out. Afterwards, as Jericho got back in the ring, Jericho hit the code breaker, and Joe tumbled to the outside, but he did not leave his feet. So yeah, disappointing because I wanted to see these two. I know they can have a really, really good match against each other, so maybe next week we'll see them in a rematch. I'd actually like to see that. And then finally, we had Braun Strowman, who was going to go into the ring and call out Roman Reigns for a fight. Strowman said he doesn't need a match. Reigns better get out here, and he wants him to fight right now. And Strowman said Chicago doesn't like Reigns, and neither does Strowman. And Roman's music hits. And, before we get into that, here we go. I just wanted to... So, as I was saying, Roman's music hits, and then this happens. The Undertaker returns on Monday Night Raw. Undertaker walks down to the ring, stares right at Braun Strowman. Strowman shakes his head and leaves the ring. I don't know if I would have done that. I don't know. I felt that kind of made Strowman look weak. You know, backing down from The Undertaker, I was like, oh man, stay in there, Strowman, stay in there, Strowman. And then eventually, whose music would hit but Roman Reigns, the big dog. So Roman comes down, walks right into the ring and tells Taker that this is his yard now. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, you disrespectful son of a bitch. And I was ready for Undertaker to grab him by the throat, get him up for the choke slam, and I was like, yeah, that's what you do, Undertaker. You choke slam the heel, because clearly in this situation, Roman Reigns is the heel. Who the hell's going to cheer him against the freaking Undertaker? If you think that's going to happen, well, that just shows you how out of touch Vince McMahon is. But it looks like we're going to get Roman Reigns versus the Undertaker. Now, I'm okay with this if you finally, as The Rock would say, use this match to turn Roman Reigns heel. But if you think, without a shadow of a doubt, that you're going to use this match to make it a passing of the torch segment, then you're crazy. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. The fans are going to crap all over it. So use this as an opportunity. This is a huge time opportunity. Probably the biggest opportunity you can come across to turn Roman Reigns heel against the guy that is universally beloved in The Undertaker. You want to turn him heel, that's the best way to do it. Just saying. But it's WWE, so knowing them, they won't capitalize on it. But I like the way Raw went off the air there with Undertaker hitting that sick-looking chokeslam on Roman Reigns. And that's how we got off the air here. I thought this was a solid edition of Monday Night Raw, one of the better editions in the last couple of weeks. If I had to give a grade for last night's edition of Raw, I'm going with a B+, a solid B+ for Monday Night Raw. That is it, guys, for this Monday Night Raw review. Thank you for tuning in and watching. Remember to leave your comments down below in the comments section for what you thought of Monday Night Raw. Always enjoy getting your feedback. And I will be back up here later on tonight after this video is uploaded for my live SmackDown review at 10 p.m. Come join me. We're going to be breaking down everything that takes place on SmackDown, headlined by the huge match between Randy Orton and AJ Styles. So I cannot wait for that. That is it, guys. Thank you for watching this Raw review. And take care and have a great rest of your day.